Well, Kiev's weekend drone attack on an Iranian ship and Russian targets in the Caspian Sea has marked the first direct link between the wars in Iran and Ukraine. Tensions between the two countries have been simmering around Tehran's close military ties with the Kremlin. But could Ukraine's strikes in the Caspian Sea be a glimpse at the two wars converging? For more on this, I'm joined by Jennifer Parker, adjunct professor at UWA's Defense and Security Institute. Jennifer, good to have you back with us. Now, firstly, what do you make of Ukraine striking those targets in the Caspian Sea? Because one would think that Kiev would be focusing its efforts closer to its borders.
I think, as Kyiv has rapidly developed this power projection capability striking deep into Russia, it has wanted to demonstrate to Russia that it is not safe anywhere. The Caspian Sea, the world's biggest lake, has been used by Russia to project force against Ukraine. So we've seen Russian warships in the Caspian Sea firing long-range missiles at Ukraine. It's also been a key source of support from Russia to Iran and Iran to Russia. And if we go back to the beginnings of this conflict over 4 years ago now, initially everybody was quite surprised at Russia's drone capability and how effective that was in Ukraine. Those initial wave of drones all came from Iran and most likely through the Caspian Sea. So it has played a key role in the Russia-Ukraine conflict.
So in this respect, whether unwittingly or not, do you see the two wars merging?
Look, I think there is potential. Certainly on the weekend after Ukraine attacked what Iran claims to be an Iranian vessel, and initially Ukraine said it was 3 Russian vessels. Russian vessels being used to transfer technology and capabilities between Russia and Iran. The Iranian foreign minister actually responded by saying effectively that they would attack Ukraine. Now, since then, we've seen diplomacy. We saw a meeting between the Ukrainian foreign minister and the Iranian foreign minister on Tuesday, and things seem to have calmed down. But there was some reporting that Iran was seriously considering a ballistic missile attack on Ukraine. And in fact, Iran was warned off this because they weren't clear on how Ukraine might respond. I do think the timing in this strike on the vessel in the Caspian Sea is critical as well. We know that Volodymyr Zelensky went to Washington this week. He met with Trump. He showed Trump allegedly evidence of Russia supporting Iran's targeting of US military assets in the Middle East conflict. And I think this strike is potentially an example of Ukraine demonstrating to the US how they can also help the US in this Middle East war. If we remember, one of the US's key tactics right now is to blockade Iran, stop the resupply of weapons, and stop oil getting out. But that's only partially effective because Iran can do both of those things through the Caspian Sea. So I think the timing is critical, and I think this was about Ukraine messaging to the US as much as it was messaging Russia and Iran.
Yeah, so was Ukraine also messaging Tehran in provoking Iran in this manner?
Yeah, look, I think so. I mean, there has been significant frustrations in Ukraine since Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine about Iranian assistance. I mean, Iran has been pivotal to Russia's success, early success in Ukraine. Of course, they supplied a significant amount of drones to Russia. They then allowed Russia to develop Iranian-designed drones. In fact, late in 2022, there was reports of Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps personnel operating in Crimea. And Ukraine actually struck a number of those. So Iran has been pivotal to supporting Russia in this fight. And I think there is some messaging around that as well. Of course, we did see Ukraine come to the aid of Gulf states earlier in the US-Iran conflict and help them train them and provide capabilities to intercept Iranian drones. So very much there is a real risk of these two conflicts merging, but they are interlinked and have been since the commencement of the Middle East war.
Do these strikes, again, going back to Ukraine in the Caspian Sea, does it show perhaps an advancement of Ukraine's drone capabilities against Russia?
Look, absolutely. I think what we've seen over the last 6 months now, this is one of a series of strikes that have occurred in the Black Sea, the Caspian Sea, the Sea of Azov, but also strikes deep into Russia. We've seen the Russian equivalent of Amazon being hit now regularly in the last 6 months, and other key infrastructure components, whether that be oil infrastructure or others in Russia. Ukraine has developed not only long-range drones, which have been incredibly effective, but also their own indigenous long-range cruise missile called the Flamingo. it certainly shows how that adaptability and innovation under the pressure of conflict can be incredibly successful. And Ukraine has come out of this as a very capable military that has developed their own indigenous weapons that is putting pressure on Vladimir Putin and holding Russia at risk. I mean, there's even been strikes on Moscow.
Yeah, I do wonder as well whether the other countries, that are surrounding the Caspian Sea as well, what might leaders of those countries be thinking at the moment? Do they feel that perhaps they may be drawn into a conflict that they otherwise won't want to?
Look, I think that they will be significantly concerned. They probably have been since this war commenced. As I mentioned before, Russia in some ways has used the Caspian Sea as a bit of a bastion, a place to operate its warships safely and attack Ukraine with long-range missiles. It is clearly no longer a safe bastion. But as we're seeing, whether it is the Russia-Ukraine conflict, I mean, you were just reporting before about a missile that's landed in Poland, or the Middle East conflict, these conflicts that involve long-range strikes very quickly escalate horizontally and very quickly spread. So I think they would be significantly concerned.
Yeah, and just finally, I mean, as expected, hostilities between the US and Iran have once again escalated. But what's been made public for the first time is Saudi Arabia's involvement in hitting Iranian proxy targets in Iraq. So what do you make of the move by the Saudis here?
Look, I don't think this is a surprise. I know a lot of commentators have reacted with surprise, but there are rumours that actually during the intensity of strikes on Iran in March, that Saudi Arabia and the UAE had conducted potentially some strikes on Iran. I think this is a clear message from Saudi Arabia that they don't expect Iranian proxy strikes on Saudi Arabia to go unpunished. I think this is also perhaps a face-saving activity to show that Saudi Arabia is a very capable military that can also stand on its own 2 feet. So I don't consider this a surprise. I am a little bit surprised, I'll be honest, by the Iranian attacks on Jordan in the last 24 hours. The US has described it as a surprise attack. I do wonder what's happening behind the scenes here in these negotiations. This is clearly a tussle for leverage in these negotiations, but it's not clear how successful these negotiations are being.
Yeah, a lot of questions yet to be answered. Jennifer Parker, always good to get your insights and expertise. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.